Welcome to the Draft Professor, everybody. My name's Jim. I am joined by Jake. And Jake, this is your first Draft Professor podcast. I'd like to say welcome to the channel. Thank you for coming.
Of course. Thank you for having me. It's always the fun time of year between this time and free agency and leading up to April 23rd. This is outside of the regular season. It doesn't get any better than this.
Yeah, and we're here to do some Los Angeles Chargers mocks. I almost called them the San Diego Chargers. I just corrected myself right before that came out of my mouth. That may happen at least one point during the podcast, but I do know
it still happens.
I know they're in Los Angeles. What do you think the Chargers need to do as they enter this draft?
Well, the good thing is that GM Joe Ortiz has gotten to work early as it relates to just before free agent frenzy to really shore up some of those biggest moves. A few weeks back, he signed Tyler Tart to a long-term extension. Obviously, just a few days ago, he got Tyler Biadasz because you definitely had to shore up and getting a new center after Bradley Bozeman retiring. Yesterday, you do bring back Khalil Mack on a one-year deal. So he's putting a premium on the trenches, which I think for free agency and the NFL draft is going to be the same mentality because you really need to build that up on both sides of the ball. So I think that's going to be a lot of what you see from a strategy perspective from this team moving forward.
So what we're going to do with the simulator, and let me pull that up. I didn't have that button ready. So we're going to use the Draft Professor simulator. And we're going to do the Chargers, and we're going to do this thing called the First Round Fanatic Challenge. So Jake is going to talk us through 5 round 1 scenarios for the Chargers. And the simulator won't let him take the same player in any of the 5 scenarios. So, Jake, I'll go through round 1, and then I'll ask you for some opinions if you think that any of the players shouldn't be going there, but it's Mendoza, Reese, Maui Noah, Bain, Tate, Freeling, Downs, Styles, Bailey, Banks, Delane, McCoy, Lemon, Fano, Allen, Tyson, Woods, Love, Sadiq, Falk, Terrell. Any surprises there?
Woods going a little bit higher than I would have foreseen. I think that he's definitely a possibility for the Chargers if he gets to 22, especially looking at that the defensive line. I know people have talked about Keldrick Falk because if you don't bring Odafe Owe back as a possibility, he's not as much of what you want to get from the pass rush production, but he's there like he basically like leads the league and just almost plays in the backfield, but he's great in terms of setting the edge against the run. That's another one. Scroll up a little bit just in case I missed anything. No. Spencer Fano is another one that people have kind of thrown out as far as guard possibility. Do you possibly kick him inside to guard if you ended up missing on Vega Ioane? And he had a tremendous combine, but I do not see him falling that far to the Chargers. And then the last one the last two I'd probably say go back up just in case. I want to make sure I'm kind of addressing everything here. Jermon McCoy is another one that has been talked about as far as, maybe not the top priority for the Chargers as far as offensive line, defensive line. This could totally be a BPA and a value pick for them just from the standpoint of him not having a 2025 season due to injury, but you go back and you watch that 2024 tape, and he definitely has first-round talent. So you could be in a situation, depending on how the board falls, if he is still there at 22, that could be a position that you'd want to strengthen up. Outside of that, I think it's pretty good.
Okay. And I do podcasts like this with people from all 32 teams. And the simulator is available for anybody that signs in to use it, right? So those picks are there because that's who people have picked for their team, kind of thing. So everything at Draft Professor is user-driven. So, I put in a default big board, and then from everybody doing mock drafts, that's how we get to where we are today. If the board fell like this, what do you think the Chargers would do at 22?
If it fell like this would be a dream scenario for the Chargers. I do not foresee this player to be on the clock at 22, but if for some reason it did, this is the easy put it on the card and race it up as quickly as you can type pick, slam dunk, whatever you want to call it. But it's Vega Ioane for sure. With what you've now done in bringing in Tyler Biadasz to shore up that center position, you also have still enough cap space if you're going to bring back Zion Johnson. And if you were to have an offensive line that now has those three guys with Big Vega in the interior there with Biadasz and Johnson, you now have a very athletic offensive line to really stack up with what Mike McDaniel wants to do in a zone blocking scheme. And to have that type of interior next to your bookends in Rashawn Slater and Joe Alt, all of a sudden you have really revitalized the interior offensive line, something that was such a bad weakness for the Chargers last year.
Yeah, so Vega Ioane for me is the same thing as Joe Alt to the Titans. It's the most commonly mocked player to a team, in my opinion. I think one of the reasons that Ioane is dropping is because the Ravens no longer have a first-round pick. Right, because they were a popular landing spot for a guard as well.
I'd like to hope that. I still think, and that's a great point that you make, is especially 14 for Baltimore was a really good spot for them to think about shoring up the trenches. I wouldn't discount the Raiders doing it with that exact same pick now, especially if you're taking Fernando Mendoza, number one, put a good offensive line in front of him. That's only going to help better him and better Ashton Jeanty as well. So, but I mean, think about as many teams that are ahead of the Chargers. You take the Raiders, for example, you can mix Detroit in there as well as far as needing offensive line. Those are some of again, I'm not saying that it's not going to happen, but I just think that there's going to be too many teams ahead of them that would look to snatch that up easily for as big of an offensive line need as some of these other teams have.
And also to give you an idea, so the list of players you see for the Chargers is a list of frequently picked players here. So if Ioane is off the board, so in the second mock, he has been sniped 4 picks before the Chargers are on the clock, what would you do?
Yeah, looking at the board here, I'm either going to go, and this is how I really think it's going to play out by the time that we get to the NFL draft. Take your pick between edge and interior defensive lineman. So looking at the board here, how I see it, I would either be targeting Caden McDonald or Clemson's TJ Parker. And right now I'll weigh it to go because we don't know what the situation is with Odafe Oweh, whether or not he's going to be back. You brought Khalil Mack, but that's only for 1 year. You have to find your next edge for the future to pair with Tuli Tuipulotu. So in this particular case, I'd probably say I'm going to go with Clemson edge TJ Parker.
Okay, so that was Ioane and Parker. So Ioane and Parker are sniped before the Chargers pick in the third mock. What would you do?
Yeah, kind of go with the same strategy in this case. Now you'd either be looking at either Caden McDonald or Caleb Banks. Caden McDonald, I just think, is an absolute wall against the run. You put him next to Tyler Tart, you can really do some damage and be able to take on some double teams that are going to be able to free up your edge rushers. I think that'd be another solid pick. Or kind of an indifferent pick among the Chargers community is Caleb Banks. A lot of people just talk about the athleticism that he brings forward. And again, the kind of the projections for him prior to the season were expected to be a little bit better. He didn't have as big of a 2025 season as many people were hoping that he was going to. But this is kind of one of those indifferent picks around Chargers land. Some people like it, some people don't. I think if you just looked at straight up value, and if you were to take a athletic guy at that type of position, much kind of in the way that you had with Deshaun Hand next to Tyler Tart this year, I think that would be a nice combination as well for two guys that can do a little bit different things as far as either shoring up the run game and getting after the quarterback. In this particular scenario, I really like Caden McDonald. I really like him. So I'd probably select him in this scenario.
Okay. So Ioane, Parker, McDonald. If all of them are sniped before your pick, what would you do?
Let's see. Okay. Much in the same argument.
I'm glad I got a little chuckle out of you.
Yeah, much in the same argument. I'd probably go with Caleb Banks if it came down to it in this particular scenario, given who's still on the board.
Okay. So Ioane, Parker, McDonald, Banks get sniped before your pick. Jordan Tyson dropped to pick 22.
That would just be a luxury for the Chargers to select a wide receiver in round one, and I just don't see that happening. Scroll down the board just a little bit. Let me just see who we still have here remaining.
And this is all user behavior here.
Mm-hmm.
So we can go through like edges, Howell, Young, R. Mason Thomas, Derek Moore are all here. Malachi Lawrence is here. Some people like Lee Hunter this high, but not everybody.
Yeah, I was all for Lee Hunter. And again, maybe we'll see what happens in between now and April 23rd. I still think that he's going to be a terrific player at his position. Just maybe when you start kind of weighing things out and we're starting to get through the cream of the NFL draft, you're really starting to get an idea as far as who's got the talent that's going to be selected in round one that people are going to value and who's going to be selected round two. It wouldn't honestly shock me if Lee Hunter ends up going at the end of round one. But if we're talking about the Chargers at 22 with no trade back scenarios in this case, that might be a little rich there. I'm a huge fan of Cassius Howell, but maybe that's just me personally. I know some people are indifferent on that just because of the measurables and, success rate and stats aside. Players who just have those type of measurements at edge at the next level just don't end up having that type of success. It's still too rich, I think, for Zion Young. Can you take me back to the overall board again?
Yeah.
Where
are you in Basantis?
I love Basantis. I personally love Basantis. I don't know if he would last to the Chargers at 55. I know that that's a popular pick when people do their mock drafts to select him there, but I don't think that he's going to last there. But I do think as far as his style of play is tailor fit for a Mike Macdonald-led offense. Manuel Pregnon is another one on that I think that he's probably not round one. He's definitely probably a round two, but I'm a fan of him. I know some people have been mocking Kenyon Sadiq, especially after his combine and what he ended up doing, even though, again, kind of in the same vein as a wide receiver. Would that be a luxury pick for the Chargers? Yes. But damn, would that be an exciting pairing to put with a Rondé Gadsden.
And if you had to do a luxury pick, would you be more likely to do Sadiq or Tyson in this case?
If I had to do a luxury pick, yes, I'd probably go with Sadiq there. I'd probably go with Sadiq. Yeah.
Do you want Sadiq or would you consider Thieneman?
Oh, that is another exciting one as well, isn't it? To pair him with Derwin James in the backfield, yes. Steve Klingscale loves the versatility of his defensive backs back there. And yeah, if I'm kind of going with my same type of mentality that I think that the Chargers are going to do in the draft, that if it's not Vega Ioane in round one, then you go to defense. So yeah, let's go ahead and take Dylan there.
Okay, so Dylan Thieneman from Oregon. So 5 round ones, Ioane, Parker, McDonald, Banks, Thieneman. And a couple things on the grading. So the grading on this simulator is entirely groupthink. A+ means you're not the first person to take Ioane in round one to the Chargers, right? And realistically, the A's would imply that those players have gone to the Chargers in round one before. They just weren't the top player on the board. Right. So the only way to get the A+ is if they are the top player on the board when you pick them. Kind of thing. So that's the way that grading works. Okay. So Andrew, for this podcast, no trade backs, but that's probably great discussion on Twitter.
It is. I have been calling for the Chargers to trade back from some sort of pick for the last decade. So I fully agree with that type of mentality that if Vega is not on the board, then the Chargers should be looking to move out for extra draft capital, considering the fact that right now they only have 5 draft selections.
So there's several draft professors, ironically, that have Basantis as interior offensive lineman 1. Right? So Ioane has a higher ceiling. Basantis is coming in with a higher floor. A couple of people that evaluated offensive linemen on this channel include retired NFL offensive lineman Jerry Ostrowski and Owen, who Owen and I are actually, and Jerry's also a Bills fan. So we have like our own Bills podcast and stuff that we do now too. But just pointing out that not everybody has Ioane as interior offensive lineman 1. Ioane is Jerry's favorite guard, but Basantis is the higher rated guard, if that makes sense.
Does.
So, okay. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to turn on this thing at the bottom called Fanatic Mode, and we're going to bump it up to 8. We're doing a 4-round draft, and we're going to go for the Chargers. So this is 8 unique Chargers mocks. So Jake will not be allowed to select the same player in any of the 8 mocks that he does. So we're going to need 8 players in round 1, 8 players round 2, 8 players round 3, 8 players round 4.
We're just going the full gamut here. Okay.
Yep. Now, a couple of other things to pay attention to with the simulator. So Jeremiah Love right now is falling to 18.
How is that?
And I know a lot of people say Saints, Titans, Chiefs, but the Chiefs people that are doing these podcasts, just like Jake, are not taking Jeremiah Love. Right? That's not one of the more popular picks. So we are going to actually enter a world where we're going to get, if you count 8 guys back, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. At some point, we're going to be able to entertain, does Jeremiah Love have the right to become a Charger? You will be presented with that situation. I don't think it came up last time, but the situation's going to come up this time.
Yeah, thankfully for the Chargers, they have their RB1 and Omarion Hampton that they drafted last year. So if you're any of these teams that are sitting behind them, you're loving the fact that Jeremiah Love has fallen into the 20s in this particular situation.
Yes. So, and this simulator is entirely scenario based. If you give me 10 minutes, I can go flip a couple of players that are going to which team, and it would look very different.
Sure.
So if the draft fell like this, is Ioane your sprint it up to the board pick?
How fast can you run? Absolutely.
Okay, so what do you think you want to look at in round 2 when we get there?
So round 2's here. Again, as I mentioned in the top, the Chargers are going to put a premium on addressing the trenches. And whether that's offense or defense, first and second round, just take your pick, flip-flop them however you want to do it. I think that's going to be their strategy with their first 2 picks. So now that we have the offensive line addressed in round 1, I think you move over to the defensive line in this case. So you have Big Citrus and Dominic Orange sitting there, Chris McKellen that's there. Let's see here. Looking else. Let's see. Daryl Jackson, yes. You know what? I'm actually going to go because I think that his draft stock is going to rise even more over the next couple of weeks. He had a fantastic combine. If Grayson Halton is there from Oklahoma at 55, I would love to see what he does next to Tyler Tart. The motor on Grayson Halton is absolutely ridiculous. I don't think it's a better example of it than when he did that chase down of Trinidad Chambliss in the Ole Miss game, just to see how athletic he is. And then to see what, just from watching his film and coupled with what he did at the combine to really just say like, yeah, it's not just film. I really am this athletic. I can get after the quarterback. I've got a lot of speed. Yes, he's undersized, but the Chargers have found success with guys his similar size in the past and being able to produce well. So I think that would be a really fun combination, putting Grayson Halton next to Tyler Tart.
Okay, so if you do Ioane and Halton rounds 1 and 2, do you go to edge round 3? Is that the first place you look?
Yeah, probably depending on who we got here. Let's take a look.
Barham. Overton, maybe. There. I don't know that I'm that high on Overton, but some are. Llewellyn's here. Kamara's here. Dennis Sutton is here.
Because this is pick 86. Let's see.
And I'm just making sure no edge has fallen to the bottom of the board. Bud Clark is here. Michael Taft, Genesis Smith, Jalen Huskies, Akeem Wheatley. Will Lee is here in round 3. Dalen Everett is here in round 3.
Show me a linebacker. Let's see. Torian York is a linebacker that I really like, even though this is probably a little bit too high for him. And it looks like everybody went on edge pretty early in this particular scenario.
Yeah. Elarms Orr is available in round 3.
Take me back to the edges, because if I don't grab one now, I'm probably not getting a decent one. Yeah, why not Jim Harbaugh go out and get one of his, just go back to the Michigan pool yet again. And if you're looking for a speed rusher type, especially if Odafe Owe is not brought back to the Chargers, I think Barham in this case fits that bill. So that's where I would go.
Okay, so Ioane, Halton, Barham, rounds 1 through 3. Thoughts on what you'd look at in round 4? I'm just going to go look at the board. Like Bryce Lance has dropped around 4 in this one. But I'll go anywhere you tell me. I'm just doing this because I want to see who dropped.
Yeah, I think at this point in time, you kind of have fun with it and really play the BPA game. So you're looking at anything from linebacker to corner to tight end to wide receiver, because those are all areas that you can really look to strengthen up the depth at those particular positions.
So Kyle Lewis is here in round 4, and Caleb Elarms Orr is here in round 4. And again, don't pay any attention to the ranking. It just means that nobody's picking them. Once you pick them, they're going to shoot way up.
Right. Elam's Orr is a good one. I actually, you know what? I'm going to go with Kayshawn Elliott in this particular scenario. If you lose out on Denzel Perryman, because you already have Deion Henley, who's great in coverage. Denzel Perryman was obviously your hammer against the run. There's a small handful of linebackers in this draft class that I think can do the exact same things that Denzel Perryman is special at. And Kayshawn Elliott is one of those as far as just getting after the run, being a downhill hammer on defense. So that's probably where I would go.
Okay. So Ioane is off the board 8 picks before the Chargers are on the clock. I think last time you did Caden McDonald in this situation, but I'm not sure. It may have been Parker. I don't know if you picked Parker or McDonald first.
I think we went Parker first, and then it was McDonald second. But I've got him here again in this circumstance. We'll still go with the idea that as of right now, Odafe Owe is not on the roster, so let's prioritize edge here. So let's go with TJ Parker.
Okay. So we got TJ Parker in round 1. When we get to round 2, you will see that Grayson Halton has been sniped before your pick.
Damn.
I'm glad you're laughing, because by the time we get to the 6th or 7th one, it may not be laughter.
Yes, it's going to be more of a headache than it's going to be laughter, I'm sure. Okay, so let's see what we got here. So edge is now off the board. Now I'd be looking at possibly addressing my interior offensive line, since I went defensive trenches in round 1. This is all the interior players that are up right now?
Correct.
Let's see here.
Rutledge is here. Some people like him in round 2.
I
like
do
him day
as
2.
well. And yeah, I either him or Bo Stevens, either one of them, for bringing them in and plugging them into the guard spot, I really like. Let's go just for fun, because I really like Rutledge in this scenario. I think he's just the type of attitude that Jim Harbaugh is looking for. Some people say that he's just an absolute mauler, maybe not even the right fit for a zone blocking scheme, but he showed off some really good athleticism during the combine. I think he can surprise a lot of people for what type of scheme he can fit into.
Parker, Rutledge, rounds 1 and 2. Any edges you like in round 3?
Yeah, actually, let's see.
Are you round 3 on Dennis Sutton?
I think he's honestly, when it comes down to it, I think he's going to go round 2. I think he's going to go higher than this. But in this particular scenario, I really like what I see from Sutton. And if it ended up playing out this way, that would be, to me, a huge value for them to pick him up in round 3 for sure.
So if you're round 2 on Sutton, out of the 70 podcasts that I've done like this, you might be the highest or second highest on Dennis Sutton. Like most people are day 2, but it's round 3, day 2. So
yeah, and my reason behind that is I think that, again, just from where we're at now and watching his film, and now that we're through the combine and we still have the pro days to go, we'll see how that obviously happens in the next month leading up to the draft. But we're already going to have so many defensive players in round one come off the board. And, you're going to have a good handful of those be edge players. And so when push comes to shove, the value of edge has just really gone up over the last couple of years. So I really think, just based on his athletic ability, his college production that he put up at Penn State, it would not surprise me at all if he is selected in round two.
And I'm not surprised that he would go in round two either, for all the reasons that you mentioned. I'm just offering commentary from the peanut gallery. So we get to the Chargers round 4 pick. You've gone TJ Parker, Keelan Rutledge, Danny Dennis Sutton, rounds 1 through 3. Is this a defensive tackle? Like, is there somebody here you really like? Or do you not have a round 4 or early day 3 grade on players like Corleone or Benny? Durant's here.
Benny,
some people are really high on Yedim.
Benny, I could see possibly making sense for round 4. Let me see the rest of what we got here.
Yes. So Tim Keenan's here in round 4.
I like what I saw from Capehart. I think he helped himself out a lot last week.
I have some people that you need to meet. If we're talking about DeMonte Capehart in round 4, this is a sleeper of all sleepers, because if you look at the consensus board, he's in the 200s, but he had an incredibly good combine.
Yep. Tell you what, I'm going to go back to the Michigan idea for Jim Harbaugh in this circumstance, is still addressing the interior defensive line. So I'll go Benny in this circumstance just to make it fun. And hopefully I'll get a chance here in the next couple to have some fun with Capehart.
Yep, we've got 6 more mocks to do. So we're going to get to talk about, if you've got guys you like, this is a really good way to do mock drafts and talk about them. Okay, so we're back to pick 22. Ioane and Parker are off the board. I think you're going to do Caden McDonald, but what do you think?
Sir. Yes, sir.
Okay, I'm learning. So we do Caden McDonald round 1. Is there another interior offensive lineman that you would consider in round 2?
Oh, let's see the way that the board fell here.
Between like Cage Casey or Bo Stevens?
Probably Bo Stevens in this scenario, the way that the board fell. Yeah, that would be my next option.
Okay. So you go McDonald, Stevens, rounds 1 and 2.
Yep.
What are you thinking in round 3 when Barham and Dennis Sutton have been sniped from you before pick 86?
See what
Romello Height. I don't know that Height was there the last time he dropped.
I do not believe that he was.
I don't know that he's the best fit for the Chargers. I'm just pointing out that he dropped.
Yeah, I think that his draft stock's just taken a little bit of a hit. I could see this as a possibility for him being in round 3. Again, he's another one that I don't see falling out of round 2. He should, probably a few weeks ago, it was like early day 2 for Romello Height, but I definitely don't see him getting out of round 2. I think he has enough talent for what he did with David Bailey there at Texas Tech to say, like, okay, yeah, this guy can be another bookend that you can use at the edge position, get after the quarterback. But for here, I'm going to continue to go with some familiarity that we know that Jim Harbaugh and crew loves to do when it comes to draft people that you're familiar with. And new defensive coordinator Chris O'Leary is going to want to get him some of his Michigan or Western Michigan personnel. So yeah, you go Nadeem Tucker here, who had a fantastic year under Chris O'Leary. Plug him in there as your next speed edge rusher.
So the comment that I would add with Romello Height is that while he's definitely graded higher than round 2, higher than round 3. He's really scheme specific. So there's going to be some teams he's not even going to be on their board until day 3. Right? Just because he may not be able to play 4-3 edge. He might be more of a 3-4 outside linebacker. Right? So just from how you would utilize him in certain defenses, I can see a world where he gets to round 3. Right? Just because he's not going to be everybody's favorite cup of tea.
Yeah.
Caden McDonald, Bo Stevens, Nadeem Tucker, rounds 1 through 3. It's a lot of trenches. What are you thinking in round 4? And I'm guiding you to safeties, but you can tell me to go wherever you want.
Give me the overall board. Let me just see what everything is speaking to me. Let's see what this looks like.
This is all most frequently picked players. So it's not really an overall board. It's more of a popularity contest. That's why I'll always tell people, look at your specific positions and see if there's a guy that you are surprised nobody's picked to move him up that high. So, for example, Torian York is here in round 4.
Mm-hmm.
Kyle Lewis is here in round 4. Aiden Fisher is here in round 4.
You know what I saw? Go back to the overall board. I'm going to flip this up a little bit. I'm actually going to go with, people might call it a luxury, but again, at round 4, I think that this is a realistic possibility of when you could start looking at just like BPA, what you need. I think if you were to add, keep going down a little bit. I think if you were to add Kendrick Law out of Kentucky and give another weapon to Justin Herbert at this point in the draft, I don't think that discussions start for drafting a wide receiver as of right now, before this point, given the other positions that you really need to prioritize. But yeah, let's have some fun in that scenario. Give Justin Herbert another weapon. And I really like what I've seen from Kendrick Law.
Okay, so now we're starting the 4th mock. Ioane, Parker, McDonald, all off the board before the Chargers pick. So this is the like where Sadiq has dropped at this point.
If this was the way that the board fell, I would be looking to trade back a couple spots, and then I would probably consider, is it Basantes? Is it Pregnant? But since we're not doing any trade back scenarios in this case, again, I'm a huge fan of Cassius Howell, but when you look at kind of what the Chargers have built at that edge position, I don't know if, production aside, because his production's phenomenal, I don't know if that fits what they're looking to build just based off of measurables. He's going to have to really overcome a lot of that in order to be productive at the next level. I still think he can do it, but some team is going to have to really take a chance on him and be able to coach him and develop up so that he can succeed at the NFL level. So in this particular case, because of what we got here and the way that the board fell, give me the overall board again. Let's feed into the pick that made everybody nuts for a while with the Chargers and the Daniel Jeremiah mock draft, and let's go with Kenyon Sadiq at round 1. Let's have some fun. Let's go off script.
I like it. I like it. And this gives us a chance to maybe talk about some positions and rounds that we haven't done. So, for example, you've been looking at defensive line. We haven't talked about where you are, Dominique Orange, Chris McClellan, or Darrell Jackson Jr. Would you take them round 2? Then there's like Derek Moore, Malachi Lawrence, Gabe Akis. Those are round 2 edges. And then for interior offensive linemen, Rutledge and Stevens are already off the board. Dunker has been drafted. Is there a player, like, is there an interior offensive lineman that you would still like in round 2? So thoughts on any of those?
If Basantes had not been signed as of right now, and if the Chargers weren't going to address center in free agency and they were going to leave it up to the draft, I'm kind of in the minority for the people that really like Jake Slaughter. I think he's been one of the most consistent centers in college football over the last couple of years. I know a lot of people are higher on Connor Lew. We'll see what his draft value ends up looking like after he suffered his injury. Logan Jones is another one who had not only just a terrific college career this past season, but he had a phenomenal combine amongst the offensive linemen that were out there. But the way that the board fell in this circumstance, I don't see that being the best value here. Take me back to the overall board. Orange. Yeah,
I always like the round 2 edge board. Like
Yeah,
in this draft, the round 2 edge board is always well, I shouldn't say always, but it's frequently among my favorite because I don't know that you can go wrong with Lawrence or Akis and possibly more in round 2.
Yeah, honestly, all three of those I would consider. I think that I really like what I've seen from Derek Moore. Malachi Lawrence is just he's an animal when it comes to getting after the quarterback. Not as good as you'd want him to be right now against the run, but in terms of getting after the quarterback, he can definitely do that. Gabe is a little bit more balanced in terms of quarterback pressure and what he's able to do in terms of setting the edge against the run. Again, I lean towards that familiarity with Derek Moore, but I think Malachi Lawrence is going to go higher than people expect. So I'm going to go Malachi Lawrence here.
Yeah, there's some draft professors that have a first-round grade on him. So Kenyon Sadiq, Malachi Lawrence, rounds 1 and 2. We haven't talked about round 3 interior offensive linemen yet. Any of these guys scream really good pick in round 3?
Cage Casey would probably be the option here out of Boise State. I think he's good enough for that. Logan Jones, while I think that he, is still the center. Is this where you draft your developmental center? I still don't think it's in round 3 that you position, the next heir apparent for Tyler Biadasz in this circumstance. So I'd probably go Cage Casey here, but let me see the interior defensive line.
So this is round 3. So McClellan and Darrell Jackson Jr. have made it to round 3.
Mm.
And there's people that'll tell you that Darrell Jackson Jr. shouldn't make it to round 3. So there's some people that have him in their top 50.
Right.
But we've done enough podcasts to know that there are people that are day 3 on Darrell Jackson Jr. Some people love him, but not everybody likes him on day 2.
Yeah.
So that's why there's just law of averages. He's going to be there in round 3 on this simulator sometimes.
Yeah, let's go back to the Cage Casey pick, because I think even in this particular mock draft, I know that most people would say, oh, if the Chargers were to not address interior offensive linemen in the draft by either rounds 1 or 2, they would just be absolutely foolish. So I would probably lean to say, you're kind of put in a difficult scenario here to where you have to address it before your 4th round pick, no question about it. So I'd probably
that's what you get for picking a tight end in round 1.
Exactly, and that's the fallout of what happens.
And I've posted some mocks with the Chargers taking offensive linemen late, and it draws a little bit of feedback if I post something that people say is that stupid. So Sadiq, Lawrence, Casey, rounds 1 through 3. Is there an interior defensive lineman that you like round 4, and is his name DeMonte Capehart?
At this point, let's go ahead and select it at this juncture. You still need to address your defensive trenches, of course. You already addressed your edge, but picking up Capehart here in the 4th, given what we started with, I think that's a good selection.
Okay, so we're 4 mocks into the 8. So this is the 5th mock. So notice, for example, in this one, Peter Woods dropped. That was a name that you mentioned very early on in the podcast.
Let's go.
Peter Woods against the field.
Yeah, let's go.
Okay, and when you pick the top player, you're not the first one to make that pick for that team. So you go Peter Woods in round 1, and your favorite round 2 offensive lineman will have already been sniped. So Halton's off the board, Rutledge is off the board, Stevens is off the board, Malachi Lawrence is off the board. You notice, for example, Elijah Surratt dropped. He was not here before. Mm-hmm. And I know you're probably not going wide receiver, just right. Pointing out that players are dropping that weren't here before.
Yeah. It's either going to be
thoughts.
Yeah, it could probably be either Moore or Gabe here. Let's go Moore.
Okay. So Peter Woods, Derek Moore. That's a pretty good mock right there.
Yeah.
You nailed your first 2 picks. Is there another round 3 offensive lineman? that you like?
Probably not the way that this is going to come up, but in this particular circumstance,
like where are you on Galvin? Where are you on? I'm
Brian
looking.
Parker
Wow.
was still available there, was he not?
Yeah, Brian Parker, I think, was there.
I mean, he's kind of become that five-tool player, much in the same way that Gray Zabel was last year when he was drafted by Seattle. And some people were looking at him to possibly be a guy that you could put in at center, but I think that he can easily play guard as well as people are going to test him out as center for as well as he did at tackle. So let's go Brian Parker there.
Okay. And Brian Parker over Jalen Farmer and Jeremiah, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Just gives you a little bit more positional versatility.
Is it that you don't think Harbaugh would draft a Michigan State player, or you just like Parker more than Galvin?
No, it's not necessarily that. I think I bring that up again because the Chargers, we'll see what happens with them with Jamari Sawyer, who's, as of right now, their best swing tackle option. And if you're looking, because they have so many free agents outside of what you've already done in releasing Mekhi Becton, in Bradley Bozeman retiring, or if you don't bring back Zion Johnson, Trevor Penning's a free agent. Andre James is a free agent. Jamari Sawyer is a free agent. You're probably not bringing back Trey Pipkin. So there's a lot of work to do, not just from the starter standpoint, but from your reserves as well. So if you can get a player that's in there that has positional versatility and essentially killing two birds with one stone, I think you go that route.
Okay. Peter Woods, Derek Moore, Brian Parker Jr., rounds 1 through 3. Thoughts on round 4?
With who is here right now?
I'll look around, but okay, so Bryce Lance is still here in round 4, for example.
That's an option.
Yeah, so that to me looks like a good pick. Some people are day 2 on CJ Daniels. Endries, Royer, Klein, Raritan, most of the tight ends are dropping. Sam Roush is still here round 4.
Right. Take me back to that overall board again.
Yeah.
Benson. Take me to wide receivers now.
Okay.
Let's have some more fun with this.
Brennan Thompson's here.
That was who I was thinking about. Yeah, for sure. Because I don't think as far as ranking goes that he gets this far, not with his speed capability. And if you're talking about someone who knows plenty about speed, that is Mike McDaniel. So again, would this be another fun pick for the Chargers to add an extra element for a speed wide receiver, something that they've tried to build up over the last couple of years? Yeah, that would be a fun weapon for Justin Herbert to pair with Ladd McConkey, Trey Harris, and KLS in that offense.
Okay, so in this mock, Ioane, Parker, McDonald, Sadiq, Woods, all snipe before your pick. Jeremiah, this is the example where Jeremiah Love is here. He's available.
Well, he's not coming to the Chargers.
Yeah, we're not picking him, but just pointing out when you get into fanatic mode, you're going to have the opportunity to do some things that you may have not been able to do before. So Chargers at 22, a lot of your favorite players are off the board. Is this Thieneman against the field?
Most likely, yeah. So let's go with Thieneman in this circumstance. You pair him next to Derwin James. I know that Steve Klingscale is probably thinking to himself, holy crap, are we going to have some fun with that combination?
Okay, and then we haven't addressed the trenches yet. So you'd think an edge, defensive tackle. Like in this case, Dunker fell. He wasn't available.
Dunker. Yeah, finally. I was waiting for when I'd get an opportunity to draft the ginger mane that has looked so good on the combine with Jennings Dunker. Yeah, I think that he's a plug-and-play guard in the McDaniel scheme for sure. So I was hoping that there would be a scenario where I would get to draft him.
Okay, so Thieneman, Dunker. Daryl Jackson Jr. is here. I don't know if you think he's a good fit for the Chargers. He's here in round 3. And then there's some edges, which include Kamara, Llewellyn, Overton, Height in round 3. And we can go to other positions. I'm just focused on the positions that you've been picking so far.
Yeah, I know some people have an opinion as far as McKellen fitting it into a it's kind of going to be a specific defensive system that he needs to fill into. But I'm actually going to go McKellen in this situation. I really like what I've seen from him, from his tape in Missouri. So again, you're just talking about a defense where they really like to keep the interior guys fresh. From what you saw, the rotation last year between Tart, between Hand, and between their 3rd round pick last year, Jamari Caldwell, I think that you could find a spot in a rotation to where McCollum could round out that group really nicely.
Okay, so Benny, Kendrick Law, DeMonte Capehart, Brennan Thompson, all off the board before your 4th round pick. You haven't taken an edge in this mock. So this is Thieneman, Dunker, McClellan. Is there an edge that you are surprised is still there round 4?
Oh, let's see. No,
some people like Anthony Lucas.
Yeah, I'm not as high as Anthony Lucas as I know some other people are.
Both Duke edges are still here in round 4. Some people like them in this range. Maybe Llewellyn. I think Llewellyn from a pass rush standpoint, you may not be able to use him in early downs, but this isn't the best edge board in round 4.
No, it's not. Kamara is another one that I like as far as an option. Again, not necessarily coming in to be your starter next to Tully, because again, you now have you've essentially put a Band-Aid on that by bringing back Khalil Mack in that scenario. So I could see that as a possibility with Mikael Kamara there. Just looking at something. Yeah, Terrain New York I have not selected yet. But I still, you know what? Let's go in a world where the Chargers are bringing back Adafe Owe and you've brought back Khalil Mack. You've shored up your edge position to where you can wait on that a little bit. Let's bring in Torian York. I think I would be doing a disservice to myself if I did not select him here, just given the situation where I really feel like he's going to be able to help that middle part of your defense, especially in the run game.
Yep. And this is maybe not everybody's favorite mock because there's no edge and you took a safety, but we're in a situation where players are getting sniped. So now we're in the 7th mock. And in this one, the players that are gone are Ioane, Parker, McDonald, Sadiq, Woods, Thieneman. So again, we're creating your worst case mock. What are your thoughts here, Jake?
Let's go back to the edge again. And again, I'm higher on Cassius Howell on the overall board, more so than I am with Keldrick Falk. Do I still think that Keldrick Falk is going to be a first-round edge? Yes, I do, just because he's going to add a lot of value to setting the edge for a defense. And now that I'm talking about it more, I'm probably talking myself right out of what I was talking about earlier, so I can't do that to myself because I just really have a special place in my heart for Cassius Howell. Whether or not the Chargers agree is a completely different story. Zion Young probably doesn't go this early, but I like his overall production probably more than I personally do Falk. Again, this is one of those out of nowhere type of mock draft. So like you said, worst case scenario. So this is going to be the multiverse of the situation with
you still have one more to do.
Right.
Yep.
This is
and then just to point out to everybody, we're talking about these edges and Jeremiah Love is on the board. So the Fanatic mode is going to give you an alternate universe. And we know that Love isn't going to go to the Chargers, but this is helping people understand that if he gets this far, he's going to end up dropping one more spot because you're not picking him.
Yeah. In this particular scenario, let's go Zion Young is probably where I would go.
Okay. I love it. And I like that we're challenging each other as to where things are on the board. So you do Zion Young in round 1. Is there an interior offensive lineman that you would hope is there in round 2 that we haven't talked about? So Rutledge, Stevens, Dunker off the board in round 2. Is there any other offensive lineman like Tiernan? Would you do Tiernan if he fell in round 2? Some people think he can play guard.
I've heard the same as it relates to Tieran, but admittedly, I've actually not gotten around to watching his tape yet, so I won't try to act like I know what I'm talking about in that situation.
And then Austin Barber and Blake Miller are also here, right? I mean, there's good players here. The question is, are they the players that the Chargers would target?
Right. Take me back to the overall just to see the kind of the full gamut of what we've got.
So a whole bunch of wide receivers are dropping. This is who's ever picking after you, maybe trading up to get like a Brazel. Like he's fallen to pick 55.
Right.
Where are you on Big Citrus?
I'm a little bit indifferent for Dominique Orange. I mean, again, I think that would the Chargers be selecting him in round 2? We'll see. I mean, it fits the mold of what their strategy is going to be. I was hoping for a little bit better production from what I saw from him for this upcoming season, but you got to address the trenches in some form or fashion. And the way that I see this weighing the interior offensive line versus the interior, the defensive line, I'd probably say that Big Citrus is your best option that you would probably do. So let's go Dominique Orange in round 2 here.
Okay. I like the way you talk through that. So Zion Young, Dominique Orange, really good defensive trenches. Is there more day 3? Is there more round 3 offensive linemen that you would talk about?
Again, if we were in a scenario where the Chargers had not brought in, I don't see them. Do I see them drafting their center of the future in this draft? Not before round 4. So is Logan Jones on my radar? Like 100%. I just don't know if you make that selection here with the other priorities that you have. So again, in this circumstance, you've addressed your edge, you've addressed your interior defensive line.
Some people are round 3 on Farmer and Wright.
Yeah. I would probably, as far as the ones that are left available to me that are not centers, straight centers, I'd probably go Farmer in this case.
Okay. Young, Orange, Farmer, trenches, rounds 1 through 3. What are your thoughts for round 4?
See what available centers end up coming back on the board here. In this case, if it's Logan Jones, then by all means, let's go for it.
Yep. Okay, 8th and final mock. Jake, you've been a really good sport going through this. I can definitely see that it is challenging some of the thinking. So again, like we have a situation here where Jordan Tyson has fallen. All of your favorite guys are off the board, right? So Ioane's off. Parker, McDonald, Sadiq, Woods, Thieneman, Young. What would you do here?
Let's go ahead and go with Chase Basantis. Let's make that selection. Let's address that guard position again. I would love it if he ended up falling to 55, if the Chargers end up going defense for their first round pick at 22. If for some reason he's there at 55, I think that's another great value for them. But in this particular scenario, let's live in a world where that doesn't happen. And obviously with the players that are off the board, let's go ahead and just take care of the interior offensive line right there with a guy who I think is plug and play in Mike McDaniel's system.
Hey, we're at round 2. This is the first time that Kristen Miller has dropped to the Chargers pick in round 2. Are you round 2 Kristen Miller, he should be a Charger, or do we look at Akis or any of the other players?
It's so funny that you bring up Akis because I was just watching his tape last night, and I really like. He's got great effort in terms of what he brings to the table, in terms of going after the quarterback, in terms of what he brings to the run. Looking at this board, considering that this is the combination between edge and interior defensive lineman, yeah, I'd probably go Akis here from what I see. Again, we're still addressing the trenches in one way, shape, or form for the offense and the defensive line, but that's probably where I would go.
Okay, so you go Bisontis and Akis rounds 1 and 2. Where's your head go for round 3? I'm just checking to see if a couple players drop.
Right.
Like I'm checking to see, like, is Rodriguez here? I don't see him. So Elam's Orr is here in round 3. Lewis is here round 3. Gerald Jackson Jr. is here round 3. Dante Corleone's round 3.
Zane Durant's there round 3, who had a phenomenal combine as well. Let's still go into the mentality and the strategy that I've had in terms of addressing the trenches. You got now your edge player in a world that Odafe Owe does not return, but we still need to shore up the interior of that defensive line a little bit. So let's go Daryl Jackson Jr. here.
Okay. And then we get to the round 4 pick. What are your thoughts going in round 4?
Again, I'm still it come round 4. It's time to have some fun with it. Basically, just play BPA as it relates to what's on the board. What do you need? Where can you shore up some additional depth? Bryce Lance being another one. I know we've taken a couple wide receivers with Thompson and why am I blanking on the name on the Kentucky wide receiver that I took? We played around with them for a couple of
Kendrick Law.
Thank you. For some reason, I couldn't get the name Lou out of my head, and I'm like, Connor Lou does not play wide receiver. So yeah, Bryce Lance would be a fun pick here. Let me see linebacker as far as who's on the board.
Lawson, Fisher, Lewis, Elam's Orr would be my best available.
Now take me to corner.
So in this mock, the guard taken was Chase Bisontis.
Mm-hmm.
You said Moore, Trey Moore?
Just take me to the corner position.
Oh, corner. I'm sorry.
That's all right. Let's see.
So Preston Hodge, do you need a nickel?
You're probably pretty set at the nickel, even though I'm a huge lover of the nickel class in this particular draft. I think you have a lot of guys that are size be damned type of players that are just dogs in the middle of the field that are not afraid to mix it up. I really like what I've seen from Andre Fuller in Toledo. I think that his draft stock, as far as what he's ranked, he's going to go a lot higher than that. And it's a bigger bodied corner that you'd want to look for. And I think that he plays physical enough with wide receivers that I think he's going to find himself in a really, really good spot. So that's a possibility. And then take me to you showed me linebacker already.
I can do it again. I'm completely okay doing it again. I can see that you're thinking, so I'm here to help.
Kyle Lewis maybe is a possibility. I think he goes probably realistically more around this particular point in the draft. And then show me tight end real quick.
This should be a good tight end board. People aren't drafting tight ends. When I do these exercises, people aren't drafting tight ends. Now, I don't know every mock that somebody does in the simulator, but in general, there's usually only 2 or 3 tight ends that are going in the top 100.
RJ Maryland is a name that sticks out to me for sure as a possibility here. So if I was to weigh, I'd probably still go with Bryce Lance out of every top option that's here for me. So that's where I would go. So you get another wide receiver so we selected Law, we selected Thompson, and now you select Bryce Lance in terms of the mock drafts here.
Okay, so we just ended up doing 8 mock drafts for the Chargers over 4 rounds. And what I'm going to do is just give a very brief demonstration. I'm going to draft for somebody that's not the Chargers. I'm picking Seattle because they only have 4 picks. And what we want to do is look to see who the Chargers took when I drafted for Seattle. Because they should be, Jake, a lot of the players that you just picked. So every player that Jake picked moved up on the Chargers player board on the simulator. And if we look in this mock, they took Ioane. And I'll go Chris Brazel here. In round 2, or they're at 56, right? They took Julian Neal. So we didn't change who they're taking in round 2. In round 3, Chargers took Grayson Halton. So that was one of the guys that you took.
Yes, sir.
And then this is where the simulator is going to make a lot of picks, and my eyes have to go quickly. I saw a Chargers pick, but I didn't see who it was. So essentially what the simulator does is selects the top player on the team's player board when the team is on the clock. So let's look at the rounds 4, 5, and 6 picks here in a moment. So in round 4, Chargers picked Tucker. In round 5,
they don't have a 5th round pick currently.
Thank you. So I'm looking for something that doesn't exist. Round 6. Jalen Farmer was one of the players you picked, right? I think so.
Yes, yes, we did. Yep.
Round 7. Maybe no round 7 pick, or did I miss it?
They may not have a 7th round pick, if I remember correctly. That may have been in the Trevor Penning trade, if I remember correctly.
Got it. So ultimately, the way the simulator works is the players the users pick is who other people are going to mock draft against. So if people want Farmer, for example, they're going to have to pick him before the Chargers pick. That was in like round 5 kind of thing, right? So players will move up boards based upon where people pick them in mock drafts.
Nice.
So that was my concept when I designed it. So Jake, I appreciate you taking about an hour out of your afternoon.
Of course. That was a lot of fun.
Well, thank you. Do you want to take a moment, introduce yourself to the Draft Professor audience, tell them how they can find you and any of the other podcasts and content that you make?
Yeah, myself and my co-host Dan Wolkenstein, we are over on Chargers Unleashed on YouTube. Been doing the podcast now for about going on 6 years now, and it's been a lot of fun. It's grown a lot over the last couple of years. Obviously, we are in the weeds as it relates to free agency and the draft right now. A lot of exciting stuff as far as new guest podcasts that are coming up, as well as obviously covering the latest news for free agency and the draft. We'll have our rankings leading up to the draft as well. So it's always a lot of fun come this time. It's like I said at the beginning of the show, it's why this point in time is my favorite part of the year, no doubt about it. But yeah, appreciate you having me on. That was a lot of fun. Got a chance to really rack my brain as far as certain scenarios for the Chargers. You always like to say to yourself, never get pigeonholed into one player whenever it comes to the draft time, because you're going to get so frustrated and you're not going to be able to really focus on the rest of the other possibilities and what draft strategies that you have to adapt or pivot to when it comes to that point in time. So that was a lot of fun.
Well, I appreciate that it was a lot of fun. Like, I designed the simulator, and then I went to my developer and I said, okay, now that we have it working, we got to get this Fanatic mode thing. It was an idea I had in my head when I was like brainstorming, designing a simulator and things like that, that mock drafts are too easy when you use the boards on the other simulators, in my opinion, because a lot of times the same player is always there in round 4 and 5.
Right.
Not on this one.
Mm-hmm. I like
right. That. So it's all based upon user behavior and who users pick. So for all of the Chargers fans that came to check out the podcast, and maybe there's one Rams fan here too, thank you. Draft Professor is here every day at 7 p.m. and 9 p.m. Eastern. So Draft Professor has 85 podcasters. We have daily podcasts. So this is already, I think, my 4th podcast today, and there's one more a little bit later on tonight. And we cover the draft year round. So literally there are 2 draft professors that are already on to the 2027 class. They're done with their boards. They're moving on.
Get to work.
So literally when May comes around, we're already going to be podcasting on the next draft class.
I love that.
Kind of thing. So we do this year round. Like I said, it's a group of about 85 podcasters. We also have something called Epic Mock 26, which is a 7-round, 32 podcaster mock draft. That is April 9th, 10th, and 11th. So we do, day 1 on Thursday, day 2 is Friday with rounds 2 and 3, and then we have a day 3 on Saturday. So we mimic the NFL draft. It's 2 weeks before the NFL draft. This is our 8th year doing Epic Mock. This is our 2nd year where we've done it with only podcasters. And it is by far the most watched podcast the Draft Professor does outside of our live draft coverage. So feel free to check that out. You should see a lot of tweets coming from the Draft Professor account that you see right here at NFL Draft Fanatic. No, I am Fanatic. Jake, thank you so much for doing this. I had a lot of fun. Glad you did too.
Yes, for sure. Thank you for having me on.
Yep. For the 85 podcasters at the Draft Professor, for Jake and myself, thank you for stopping by. Enjoy your Sunday, and we'll see you on a podcast again later tonight. Thank you, everybody.